when Mrs. Carter began her work in 1987, supporting those who selflessly care for others. Back then, the term caregiver was not part of our language. There was no National Family Center for Caregiver program. There were no evidences of our language and no language-based programs in existence to help family caregivers increase their skills and the quality of life. And there was no one else stepping up to champion the unsung heroes who were shouldering the burden of the long-term care system in our country. Mrs. Carter believed then, as she believes now, that there must be a fundamental shift in how our nation values caregiving and caregivers. Tonight's program does just that. I hope you'll join me now in welcoming the Executive Director of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving, Dr. Lisa Easom.
Thank you, Monica. On behalf of Mrs. Carter and the staff of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving, I want to welcome you to the campus of Georgia Southwestern State University. We are so pleased to have you with us this evening as we pay tribute to caregivers who do the work that they do willingly and selflessly. At this time, I'd like to recognize some very important people. From Johnson & Johnson, we have Sharon D'Agostino, the Vice President of Worldwide Corporate Contributions, Dr. Rick Martinez, who's the Director of Corporate Contributions, and Ms. Carrie Dedinello, who's the Senior Coordinator for Johnson & Johnson. We are so grateful for your unwavering support of Mrs. Carter and the RCI for these past 12 years. Would you please be standing and be recognized? Dr. Kendall Blanchard, who is the president of Georgia Southwestern State University, his wife, Dr. Connie Blanchard, and all of the Rosalynn Carter Institute board members who work very hard, sometimes behind the scenes, to ensure that the Rosalynn Carter Institute is continually supported in its work, and we thank you. Please all stand and be recognized. Our colleagues from RCI Korea, Dr. Chung Sung Kim, who is president of Cyber University, Ms. Juang Lee, Dr. Scott Juang, Dr. Kyung Jung Cho, and Dr. Yoonjin Kim. We are so excited that you have traveled across the globe to be with us tonight. Thank you so much. Please stand now and be recognized. I also want to recognize a couple other people, but I would be remiss if I did not address and thank you to the Georgia Southwestern community for all those people that work behind the scenes to help us put on this event. Please know that you are appreciated. I know many of you still working tonight, but thank you so much. We do appreciate you. Dr. Mae Weichel, she is an RCI board member and past Pope Eminent Scholar. We'll be hearing from her later on tonight. But also Mrs. Monica Pearson, who is Board Emeritus, and she's joining us tonight as our MC. Thank you. Please stand and be recognized. And we are pleased to have with us tonight Gary Barg, who is the editor of today's Caregiver magazine with us. A good friend to the Rosalynn Carter Institute throughout the years, Gary featured Mrs. Carter on the cover of this month's magazine in recognition of our 25th year anniversary. Please stand and be recognized, Gary. I'd like to share a few words about caregivers. Many caregivers work quietly, invisibly, and around the clock in homes, in hospitals, and other places across the country. We are truly facing a caregiving crisis in the United States. Our aging population and the growing burden of chronic illnesses and disabilities escalate the need for caregivers. When Mrs. Carter first started the Rosalynn Carter Institute, she understood through her own personal caregiving experiences that those who are in need of care were receiving the majority of that care in their own homes, by family members giving that care without support, without compensation, and without training. Although the past 25 years have seen many positive changes, especially in the areas of education, training, and support, caregiving is still often an unexpected career that can strike at any moment, many times when least expected. Individuals do not rehearse for this caregiving role, and they are many times unprepared. Delivering quality care to another person with love and respect is both very labor-intensive and personally demanding. While caregiving can be very rewarding and meaningful, the caregiving role can also be complicated, bewildering, and frustrating. In their quest to provide care to others, many times caregivers neglect their own needs. Research shows us that providing care to another increases a person's risk of mortality. Many times the caregiver dies while the loved one lives on. The need to provide effective, tailored support to caregivers has never been greater. Having a champion who has identified the needs of caregivers and who continues to advocate for more funding to support them effectively is what has driven the work of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for these past 25 years. I am honored to call to the podium our champion, former First Lady Rosalynn Carter, who had the vision to look ahead and address the needs of caregivers. Mrs. Carter.
Thank you, Lisa. I get a lot of credit, and look at all of you who do the wonderful work. I'm just deeply, deeply grateful to you. And I think we had a great day. Every presentation was just wonderful, and I thank the presenters and all who've made this day, and the staff, like all the staff. It's been really wonderful. And I think we're all inspired by what we heard today about the great work being done across the country. On lifetime, caregivers over a lifetime. Working to improve the lives of those who are struggling is truly noble, and I salute all of you and thank all of you. And tonight we want to honor caregivers across the spectrum, starting with those who rarely receive recognition for what they do: family caregivers, paraprofessional caregivers, and volunteer caregivers. These are caregivers who bear the brunt of the sometimes grueling hands-on care that their family members, neighbors, and community members require every day on a daily basis. Their work is not done for glory or money or fame. It is born out of necessity and delivered with grace. Please join me in welcoming Gail Alston, RCI Director of Community Initiatives, to the podium to present the Georgia Caregiver of the Year Award. Thank you. Gail.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Good evening. This is one of the highlights of my year. I don't know what that says about my personal life, but it's an honor to be part of this program this evening. Each year, the 12 CareNets around the state of Georgia accept nominations for exceptional caregivers in 3 categories: paraprofessional, volunteer, and family. From these nominations, regional winners are selected around the state. These regional winners are then submitted for consideration by an award committee at RCI for the Georgia Caregiver of the Year in each of these categories. Some of those regional winners are with us here this evening, and I would like to recognize them. Please stand as I call out your name. From the Southwest Georgia CareNet, the Family Caregiver of the Year, Margie Parker. Also from the Southwest Georgia CareNet, the Paraprofessional Caregiver of the Year, Corinne Miller. From the Atlanta Regional Commission CareNet, the Family Caregiver of the Year, Janet Denoli Parmenter. She's coached me on that name and I still messed it up. I'm sorry. Heart of Georgia, Altamaha, CareNet, Family Caregiver of the Year, Cynthia Annette McCall. Heart of Georgia, Altamaha, CareNet, Paraprofessional Caregiver of the Year, Gloria Gilchrist. As I read through the essays of this year's Caregivers of the Year, the same question kept coming to my mind. Where is their cape? I had this image of these powerful superheroes standing in the face of the adversities of caregiving. And I'm sure that as you hear the stories tonight, you'll also be amazed at their stories. Their stories are incredible examples of compassion, dedication, and over-the-top creativity as they face the challenges of caregiving. Paraprofessional caregivers are those frontline workers who provide direct care to care recipients and their families, such as certified nursing assistants, home and personal care aides, or licensed practical nurses. You know, there are those who say that being a certified nursing assistant is more of a calling than a job. Our Paraprofessional Caregiver of the Year would be a good illustration of this belief. There seems to be something supernatural about her ability to detect even the most subtle changes in their patient's health or behavior. She is a canary in the coal mine, alerting family members and medical staff when trouble may be brewing. Her coworkers tease her. They say that she should have an honorary MD after her name due to her diagnostic abilities. She has sought timely responses to medical conditions that would have become much more serious if not for her sixth sense awareness of her patients. She uses her cell phone as Command Station Central, programmed with the numbers of pharmacies, medical personnel, family members, right there at her fingertips. She makes herself accessible nights and weekends. Family members count on her for updates and reassurance. Coworkers count on her for advice, training, and encouragement. And grieving families cry on her shoulder, finding comfort there in their time of loss. In the words of her executive director, Walani makes an appreciable and positive difference in the lives of each and every resident of Bentley Assisted Living. Her loving and caring attitude is infectious. Every family member trusts her and routinely asks for her opinions. Walani's co-workers look up to her and made her their official first-line supervisor. Her advice and guidance comes not only from solid knowledge and experience, but also from genuine caring and concern. Ladies and gentlemen, nominated by the Atlanta Regional Commission, CareNet, I present to you the 2012 Georgia Paraprofessional Caregiver of the Year, Ms. Walani Martin. A volunteer caregiver has provided at least 1 year of service caring for others or has been involved in an event or activity that has provided support to a care receiver and their family. Have you ever seen a retired teacher on a mission? She is a force to be reckoned with. When our volunteer caregiver of the year was providing care for her own mother, she saw the gaping need for information and support family caregivers experience firsthand. She took action. Caregivers Resources and Support Services, Inc. was born. Since its inception in 1997, over 100 volunteers have been trained and put to service for over 1,200 caregivers in Wayne County, Georgia. From assistance in acquiring prescription drugs, information and referral to available resources, and encouragement and support to family caregivers, to educating and expanding community awareness of caregiving issues. Caregiver RSS has been a tremendously successful grassroots movement. She accepts no salary or compensation, and when grant funding or donations don't cover the expenses, she has been known to draw from her own retirement to keep the program running. You would think her responsibilities to her family and caregiver RSS would fill her time completely, but oh no. She's either an active member or a board member of organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, Wayne County AARP, and Family Connections, just to name a few. And of course, she is fully engaged in multiple programs in her church. A board member writes, "When I was approached to serve on the board of Caregiver RSS, I had very little knowledge about the challenges faced by those who offer care or other assistance to the disabled and elderly. Here was this retired school teacher with little or no funding, armed only with a strong will and dogged determination, starting a grassroots program to assist those who had little or no hope. Her perseverance, inquiries, resourcefulness, and heart have made her a beacon of hope to the citizens of Wayne and surrounding counties." Ladies and gentlemen, nominated by the Heart of Georgia Altamaha CareNet, I present to you the 2012 Georgia Volunteer Caregiver of the Year, Ms. Lucille Brock Thomas. Family caregiver is any family member or someone who acts as a family member, providing support and assistance to care recipients so that they may have a full life in the community. Now, I could spend the rest of the evening sharing the list of ways our Family Caregiver of the Year has shown exceptional tenacity and devotion in providing care to her father, her mother, and her grandmother. But don't worry, I won't. Instead, I'll share just a few excerpts from the many letters of support we got for her nomination. And I quote, "At a time when most young people are struggling for independence and finding their way in the world, she was coping with the failing health of both parents and maternal grandmother. With minimal support or resources, she managed to turn this overwhelming situation into an impassioned journey that has literally rescued her family from despair and has become an inspiration to others." Another writes, "All of our residents and staff look forward to her visits. During this time, she can be observed in the long corridors, advocating for her grandmother, expressing compassion, and validating the emotions of our chronically ill residents and their family members. She acts as a leader and mentor to all of our staff." She goes on, "It is my firm belief that she will eventually, single-handedly, change the world for the better. She is well on her way to becoming an innovative leader and change agent who will move the care, education, and research of aging and disability services into the future. She is a shining star." Ladies and gentlemen, nominated by the Atlanta Regional CareNet, I present to you the 2012 Georgia Family Caregiver of the Year, Ms. Ashley Stroud.
Congratulations to all of our winners, and let's give them all another round of applause. And to all the caregivers in this room tonight, thank you. I understand that our winners already don't know what I'm about to say because it comes from my mother. It's a Hattieism. I have an 89-year-old mother. My husband's mother is 81, and she cared for her mother until she passed about a month ago at the age of 94. And what my mother said, these three women are an indication of. My mom says all the time, as you are, I once was. As I am, you one day will be. So I just thought that little Hattieism needed to be dropped off tonight. Right now, I'd like to introduce you to Miss Laura Bauer. She's the Director of National Initiatives for the Rosalynn Carter Institute. She's coming to the podium to announce the winner of the 2012 Rosalynn Carter Leadership in Caregiving Award. Laura.
Good evening. The highest award given in the caregiving field, the Rosalynn Carter Leadership in Caregiving Award, recognizes leadership in implementing innovative partnerships between community agencies and caregiving researchers that bridge the gap between science and service. These partnerships help move effective caregiver support programs to widespread use in the communities, quickly and efficiently. Generously sponsored each year by Johnson & Johnson, the award-winning team receives a cash award of $20,000 and a beautiful statuette by renowned sculptor Frank Eliscu, who also designed the Heisman Trophy. This year's award winner has taken an effective evidence-based caregiver intervention and successfully translated it into usage with Hispanic caregivers of those with Alzheimer's disease. They have also leveraged community partnerships and grant funding from several sources to develop a complete menu of evidence-based caregiver programs that are improving the health and well-being of caregivers in the San Diego area. A firm believer that actions speak louder than words, I invite you to watch and bear witness to the work of the Southern Caregiver Resource Center.
El mejor hombre del mundo.
He was the best man in the world.
En los últimos tiempos mi esposo ha cambiado.
He has changed because he has deteriorated physically and mentally.
En el baño lo ayudo a...
I usually help him in the bathroom, brushing his teeth and standing up and getting dressed.
Y todo eso sí es pesado. A veces quiero descansar.
It is very hard. I have to remember on doing all the things he used to do, plus the things I have to do.
There is no word for caregiver in the Hispanic population, they just do. And they've always done. They've always cared for the members of their family who were ill without thinking about the toll that it might be taking on them. The Rosalynn Carter Institute has always been about supporting that family caregiver who is really the backbone of long-term care. We've been doing grants funded by Johnson & Johnson for community-based organizations that were doing things to help caregivers in their local areas. We decided that we would start doing translations of evidence-based caregiver programs into use in the community settings. Rather than keeping our fingers crossed that we were giving grant funds to the people that could be successful in the community, we decided to do pre-grant technical assistance, a series of webinars that were mandatory for anybody that wanted to apply for the grant funds. There were also homework assignments given out. It was important information that they needed to learn so that they could be successful later on.
Just looking at some of the outreach that
Southern Caregiver Resource Center really stood out. They were working basically with a population that was mostly Hispanic. They were very sharp at recognizing the need for using an evidence-based caregiver program.
Part of the reason evidence-based programming is so important is because we know it works because it's been proven in a random controlled trial. There's data behind it. Data is power because it lets us know the true impact we're having on families.
RCI's research over the years had shown that there were only a couple strong evidence-based caregiver intervention programs tested with the Hispanic population, and REACH was one of those interventions.
REACH stands for Resources for Enhancing Alzheimer Caregivers' Health.
Dolores Gallagher Thompson was one of the original REACH investigators. Southern Caregiver Resource Center needed somebody that could assist them with that.
And it enabled us to work with her to tailor this program while maintaining fidelity to deliver it to a very specific population.
There are 3 key components. The first is the assessment process. The second is the action plan. And the third was the caregiver notebook. The program was developed to be culturally competent and has been shown to be effective.
But REACH made no sense in Spanish. So we had to develop Cuidar to really make sense for the population that we're serving.
Primero voy a decirles un poco
Through this program, Cuidar, what I do is I identify my clients. I let them know that this program is specifically designed for people with memory loss, Alzheimer's, and dementia. Also, I let them know that it's totally free of cost.
Promotores are really peer health educators. All of our promotores are bilingual, bicultural. They actually are employed by our partner agencies that are within the communities that we're serving.
Promotores are the link between the community and ourselves.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hola, muy bien, gracias.
Also met Rebecca at a county office. She performed an intake, which is filling out information regarding demographics like name, address, phone number, age. And during her intake, she determined that Rebecca was not the main caregiver. So Dulce talked to me about the possibility of me doing a home visit to meet Esperanza, which is the main caregiver.
Cuando yo la conocí por primera vez,
When I first met Olivia, I felt very comfortable with her. I had the feeling that I had known her for a long time.
I performed my assessment and I initiated my program focusing on Esperanza. Esperanza got this notebook.
So the caregiver guide has a variety of sections in it. They'll go into in-depth education, strategies, techniques for coping with this issue, educational materials, fact sheets from our organization or other organizations that may be in there as well.
That notebook contains all the necessary parts of the program.
yo comencé a platicar con él.
I learned more about memory loss and Santos disease.
We go over that notebook part by part, and we actually dissect it so that Esperanza really knows what's inside.
El libro yo lo leí como ella
I
me
read the whole book as Olivia taught me, and that helped me very much to provide care more efficiently for Santos.
So now Esperanza is watching what she eats. She walks. Pleasurable activities are never absent in her life, at least 4 per day, and her breathing and relaxation exercises are always in her fridge.
Lo primero que yo aprendí
She taught me how to feel less stress,
Los tobillos los mueve.
to reduce tension, and she taught me also to do a number of things to make me feel happier.
When the intervention is over, now they have a set of skills that they can use on their own throughout the duration of their caregiving situation.
What we find anytime there's an intervention done with a family caregiver, it has positive effects on the entire family unit.
la amistad de Olivia.
The best that I got was a relationship with Olivia, and also that I learned how to better care for my family.
When I found out from our care managers that people are calling them that heard about the program from a neighbor, family member, friend, that's pretty exciting too, because it means the program is really making a difference for people.
The effects were even better than they had been in the original research.
On a number of levels, we believe that the Cuidar program is highly effective in these communities.
It's science that works. As you can see, this year's award winners are truly stars in the caregiving field. I would like to call up Rick Martinez, Sharon D'Agostino, Lisa Easom, Mrs. Carter, and the wonderful team from the Southern Caregiver Resource Center, Roberto Velasquez, Lori Van Tilburg, and Kurt Buskey.
I want to congratulate all of you on the great work you're doing, and we at RCI are proud to be part of what you're doing. It's a great job, and I want to thank Johnson Johnson. We couldn't do so many of the things that we do without Johnson Johnson. It's just deeply grateful, and we're grateful for you, and we present you with this and with the award.
Which is right behind you, and it's very heavy.
Is someone going to pick that up?
And I'm not going to pick it up. One year we had someone ask us if we would buy a seat for it on the airplane on the way home. So, but it's great, and I understand also that he designed the entrance to the National Cathedral. Isn't that right? Yes, sir. He designed the entrance, and so we're proud of the award, and we're proud of the great work he does. The film is inspirational.
Yeah, we're proud to be a small manifestation of your vision. So it's impacting caregivers now worldwide.
That's what makes it working, because of people like you.
I won't feel so alone on the end.
Are you enjoying the evening so far? Well, believe it or not, it's going to get even better. Please welcome Carla Hawkins, Miss Black Georgia USA 2010, as she sings a tribute to Mrs. Carter and all of the caregivers in our audience tonight. Please welcome Miss Hawkins.
Truly, there can be miracles when you believe, and I've been touched even from that video, and I think this song is very appropriate for this occasion, so I hope it blesses you all. This does not move, does it? No, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna have to lean a little bit. Okay. There we go. Yay. Many nights we prayed with no proof anyone could hear. In our hearts a hopeful song we barely understood. But we are not afraid, although we know there's much to fear. We were moving mountains long before we knew we could. There can be miracles when you believe. Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Who knows what miracles you can achieve when you believe. Somehow you will when you believe. seems so gone. Hope seems like the song of birds too swiftly flown away. Yet now I'm standing here, my heart's so full I can't explain, seeking faith and speaking words I never thought I'd say. There can be miracles when you believe. Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Who knows what miracles you can achieve when you believe. Somehow you will when you believe. Oh, they don't always happen when you ask. And it's easy to give in to your fears. But when you're blinded by the pain, can't see your way through the rain, a small and still resilient voice says love is very near. Oh, there can be miracles when you believe. Though hope is frail, it's hard to kill. Oh yeah, who knows what miracles you can achieve when you believe. Somehow, I know you will when you believe. Oh, you will when you believe. You gotta believe miracles can happen. All you have to do is believe. Thank you.
Photographer, please. Take a picture of those two together. It's priceless.
I gotta have a photograph, and then she said she'd sing another song.
Yes.
Any requests? Okay, I'm just gonna do one of my signature songs that mean a lot to me, and that's His Eyes on the Sparrow.
Oh, I love that.
So, yes. Gonna sing that. Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart feel lonely and long for my heavenly home when Jesus is my portion? His eye is on the sparrow, and I know and I sing because I'm so happy, and I sing because I'm free. Oh, his eye is on all of the sparrows, and I know he watches over us. Thank you.
What a talented voice and an unbelievable personality to go with it. Okay, so where's the album? Coming soon. Did you enjoy her? Yes. So in that Baptist tradition, let the church say. Oh, Carla, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Now please welcome RCI board member Dr. May Weichel of the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing at Case Western Reserve University to the podium. Dr. Weichel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Isn't this a wonderful celebration?
Yes.
Well, it's a pleasure for me to be here on this magnanimous occasion to celebrate 25 years of the Rosalynn Carter Institute of Caregiving and to appreciate the legacy that has been established since Mrs. Carter championed the family caregiver. And I am humbled this evening to pay tribute to Rosalynn Carter, the former First Lady and founder of the Rosalynn Carter Institute of Caregiving, a distinguished woman in her own right. Mrs. Carter is held in highest esteem not only because she was a beloved First Lady, but because of her remarkable research, her crusade ability, and policy contributions in two important areas: mental health and family caregiving. Deservedly, the Georgia Southwestern State University named the new Health and Human Sciences Complex in her honor as the RCI turns 25. Mrs. Carter is a visionary who has been able to use her extraordinary talents. She is a strong, compassionate leader and a lady of quiet dignity who empowers others, never ceasing to be on the cutting edge of humanistic endeavors. She lives life to its fullness, seizing the opportunity to taste a range of experiences, including traveling with President Carter, learning firsthand the issues and problems of women and children and health care and human rights around the globe. She has visited many countries and interacted with the less fortunate, opening the ways for healing. Mrs. Carter has addressed human suffering and fueled the desire in others to lead and be all that they can be. Rosalynn Carter says, and this is my favorite quote from her, that a good leader takes people where they want to go, but a great leader takes people where they never dreamed of going. Her accomplishments have called for flexibility and adaptability to change when essential knowledge is discovered. She never gave up on RCI and its caring mission, and that mission has been with us since 1987. Her energy and enthusiasm, manifested in a quiet, unassuming way, is dynamic and powerful. Rosalynn Carter has been a true mentor and role model who works tirelessly, and I had the great experience of working with her as the Pope Eminent Scholar at the RCI, and that was an unforgettable time in my life. And I will never forget that she let me use her office. I could hardly breathe, let alone work. Being a psychiatric nurse, I had long admired what she has done for psychiatric care, demystifying mental illness through her programmatic efforts. And while in the White House, she continued to be a staunch advocate for mental health and helped change some of the stigma toward mental health illness. Rosalynn Carter was instrumental in creating the Georgia CareNets. Working with public partnerships, she created the Georgia CareNet Leadership Council and supported the establishment of the National Quality Caregiving Coalition. I never could say that right, but it's the NCQCC. The CareNets were planned to cover Georgia and to provide education for both formal and informal caregivers, often learning together. The CareNets were designed also to build resources needed by caregivers in specific communities where they lived. When I conducted research on family caregivers, and I did several research projects, when they were asked what would help them, they all wanted more education about the care recipient's condition and illness, and they wanted help with family conflict. The Rosalynn Carter Institute addresses caregiving across the lifespan and across illnesses and disabilities, including children as care recipients and children as caregivers, and male caregivers, husbands and sons. And one of my projects back in those days was to work with a group of husbands who were caregivers, and that was a really fantastic experience. Recently, Mrs. Carter has focused on the caregiving needs of military families. We can all agree that Mrs. Carter has brought national and international attention to the plight of caregiving families. She has written several informative books, including the classic, Helping Yourself, Help Others. And I quote from her book, "I believe one of the most important missions that I can fulfill as former First Lady is to focus attention on you, the family caregiver. I believe you belong to a special category of unsung heroes, heroes who deserve support, services, and praise for extraordinary personal sacrifices and contributions to society." End of quote. Catherine Gillis, a nationally known nurse leader, and nurses, I want you to know, love Mrs. Carter. She defines a social entrepreneur as being similar to a business entrepreneur, but for the deliberate difference in intended outcome. Social entrepreneurs design and implement innovative ideas and practice models for achieving social good. Through their work, and by spotlighting their work, the larger society begins to understand how old problems might be addressed in new ways, ideas that can be incorporated into the work of others. Mrs. Carter is a social entrepreneur. She saw a community need and sought to implement solutions creating social good. Her outstanding work with mental health caregiving and now military families has brought changes in policy and care practices. She demonstrates the energy and perseverance that leaders need to be tireless advocates and bring about change. Mrs. Carter's work also reflects her spirituality and belief in a higher power. In talking with caregivers, Mrs. Carter always does her research, her homework beforehand, and consults experts. Her formal presentations are based on knowledge and information derived from interviews with caregivers. She always greets her audiences with authenticity, graciousness, and humor. Mrs. Carter, I will not say your age, but you, like me, came along before all of the advanced technology. We were before computers, cell phones, Twitter, Facebook, iPods, and email. A mother was teaching her 3-year-old daughter the Lord's Prayer, and for several evenings she repeated it after her mother. And one night she said she was ready to try it on her own. So Mother glistened with pride and listened to each word right up to the end. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us some email. Amen. I was also before email. Mrs. Carter, you have done such great work well before email, and your impact and the work of RCI will be recorded in history. Your contributions to society, both national and international, have been amazing. You have a loving, devoted family, and the RCI staff, board, and Georgia Southwestern University, and grateful caregivers all are so proud of your accomplishments. We love and admire you. And we know, Rosalynn Carter, you make God smile.
You see why I love May. And I'm a little overwhelmed with all the accolades I've gotten today. But, and all the credit I've gotten, and I think I've said this before, because there's no way that I could have done all of this. The university has been so wonderful. May came and stayed a whole year with us. The staff, the Rosalynn Carter Institute, Johnson & Johnson, I could not have done any of it without all of you. So the credit goes to you as much as it goes to me, and I am deeply grateful to all of you for the great work you do to make life better for caregivers. Thank you.
As they say, can't you feel the love tonight? And it's so well deserved, Mrs. Carter, because you've loved us all. But we aren't finished with you just yet. We have a couple more surprises in store. And I'm going to bring up now State Representative Mike Chokas to the podium with a little surprise.
I wear another hat besides state representative. I'm also co-chair of the board of directors for the Rosalynn Carter Institute. And in that capacity, I get to see the good work that Mrs. Carter does up close and personal. And I am deeply honored and grateful for this opportunity. Ms. Monica, the last time I saw you, we were celebrating your retirement at the ripe old age of 29. I want to know your secret. Anyway, I bring tonight a combination by the governor of the state of Georgia, and I'm going to read it to you. Whereas former First Lady Rosalynn Carter has had a dramatic impact on both the great state of Georgia and the United States as a whole. Born and raised in Plains, Georgia, she attended Georgia Southwestern State University and returned to our state with her exceptional family following her husband's departure from the Navy. Whereas since helping her husband to be elected to the Georgia State Senate in 1962, and I remember that, Mrs. Carter has been an active voice in the political arena. She has also been a strong advocate for those suffering from mental health and debilitating illnesses ever since her time as First Lady of Georgia. Since leaving the White House, Mrs. Carter has continued her strong advocacy and active role in public initiatives. Whereas Mrs. Carter created and serves as the chair of the Carter Center Mental Health Task Force, hosts the annual Rosalynn Carter Symposium on Mental Health Policy, and has served on the Policy Advisory Board of the Atlanta Project of the Carter Center. She also launched the Every Child by Two nationwide campaign, serves on the Board of Advisors for Habitat for Humanity, is an honorary chair of Project Interconnections, and remains the president of the Board of Directors of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving at her alma mater here at Georgia Southwestern, to name only of a few of her numerous contributions to our state and nation. And that was a mouthful. Anyway, whereas the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving was founded in 1987 and aims to address issues related to the selfless undertaking in America and internationally by supporting both professional and family caregivers. Through advocacy, education, research, and service, the RCI plays a major role in moving science into practice for those providing care to individuals enduring chronic illnesses and disabilities, age-related complications, and other health concerns. Whereas Rosalynn Carter's legacy as a devoted mother, wife, and caring First Lady both of Georgia and the United States of America, and an ardent advocate of those suffering from mental and physical illnesses, has had an enduring effect on our state. We appreciate her many contributions and are proud to know that such a distinguished individual calls Georgia her home. Therefore, I, Nathan Deal, Governor of the state of Georgia, do hereby thank and commend Rosalynn Carter and join her in celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving. Thank you, Mrs. Carter.
My program said May was the last thing. I didn't mention Dr. Kim and our great friends from South Korea. What? And stand up again. Because with Dr. Kim and the South Koreans, we are an international organization. And University has students from I don't know how many countries. It's really, really incredible. The spread and acknowledgement we get from Dr. Kim and the University and the students that they do the Rosalynn Carter Institute programs to. I'm deeply grateful. Thank you.
One last thing, Mrs. Carter, and I promise this is the last thing. You have touched so many lives over the past 25 years with the Institute's work and even before that. But there are a lot of people who couldn't be with us tonight whose lives you've touched, and they would like to share with you their thoughts on the 25th anniversary of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving.
Good evening. Congratulations to the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving and all of those who've made it a success over the last 25 years. Most notably, thank you, Mrs. Carter, not only for what you've done in the last 25 years, but what you've done in a lifetime of service to your community and our country. Thank you for your work on the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act, and thank you for your leadership in ending stigma towards mental illness. Again, I wish I could be with all of you, but I know that you're celebrating an important evening, and I'm glad to be here in spirit. Congratulations to everyone, and thank you again, Mrs. Carter, and keep up the great work, everybody. Have a good evening.
Hello, my name is Kathy Greenlee. I am the Assistant Secretary for Aging, as well as the Administrator for the Administration for Community Living at the Department of Health and Human Services. I am very glad to join many other people in congratulating the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving for 25 years of wonderful work on behalf of seniors. Mrs. Carter, it has been such an honor these past couple of years to be able to join you in this work. In fact, 2 years ago, I came to Americas to speak to your convention, and I remember from that occasion several important things about your work. One is your contribution to the field of caregiving and what an impact it has on the seniors of this country as well as their families. The other thing I took away from our meeting and our continued work is your commitment to evidence-based programming, which is, I think, the secret to our success as we deliver more and more programs for seniors in this country. And I've sent many people your way since I met you 2 years ago because of your leadership in terms of evidence and the programs that we need to implement. I know we're celebrating family caregiving at this event, but I would be remiss if I didn't also thank you, Mrs. Carter, for your work on behalf of people with mental illness. This is an issue that's of significant importance to seniors. Seniors have high degrees of depression, and older men have some of the highest rates of suicide in this country. So your work in caregiving and mental health mean a tremendous amount to this country. I last saw you about 1.5 years ago in May and was very honored to join you at a Senate hearing to talk about the needs of older adults in this country. I hope to continue to be able to serve and work with you as we tackle these important problems. And I'm very, very honored to have had this chance to meet you and congratulate you. Your work is so important.
Hi, I'm Patricia Bethune. I had the honor to help create a public service announcement on behalf of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving to bring attention to the needs of caregivers. For most, we care about the ones we love, check it off our list of life's obligations, try to forget the stress, recover financially, and hope that maybe one day we get into a size 10 again. And then there are those rare individuals who stop, look back, and share what they've learned. No, there can be a better way if we just research, listen, work with caregivers, join together, and focus our energies. I want to congratulate you, Mrs. Carter, and thank you for 25 years of reaching back and making the present and the future of all caregivers much, much brighter.
Congratulations to my dear friend and former First Lady, Rosalynn Carter, and the dedicated staff at the Carter Institute on a quarter-century of leadership to improve the lives of family caregivers. Since my very first job in Washington as an intern in the Carter White House, Rosalynn has been an inspiration to me. She redefined the role of the First Lady. She spoke her mind, she influenced policy. She started a conversation on mental health parity that led to historic changes in treatment. She was fighting the stigma and giving voice to millions of Americans. She was helping to start a movement. Rosalynn has done the same thing to bring critical attention to the caregiving crisis in America. She's done it by putting together an incredible team to build support for evidence-based solutions. We know that medical science is advancing faster. People are living longer, and treatments are getting better. While these advances are good for our longevity, they place new strains on our families. I was honored to travel to Georgia last winter and talk to Rosalynn and my friends at the Carter Institute about our government's responsibility to address this crisis. As the United States Secretary of Labor, I believe that all work has dignity. There's great honor in saying I'm a caregiver. The Rosalynn Carter Institute is doing some of the most important work anywhere in the world to give family caregivers the resources and support they need and deserve. The Obama administration is committed to building bridges and training more professionals who can help family caregivers look out for our loved ones in the twilight of their lives. So Rosalynn, thank you for being one of the most active and thoughtful First Ladies in the history of this nation. Working together, I know we can improve the quality of life for our elders and their caregivers who give so much. Happy 25th anniversary, my friends. You have the thanks of a grateful nation. Please keep up the great work.
Rosalynn, it's my honor to congratulate you and the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving on its 25th anniversary. I've had the pleasure of being your friend for many years and have seen firsthand your support and compassion for those in need. Your leadership and commitment to helping others are greatly valued by so many in this country and throughout the world. Congratulations again, and thank you for all your hard work and dedication.
Hi, I'm Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, and it's my great honor to congratulate former First Lady Rosalynn Carter on 25 remarkable years as a leading champion for America's caregivers. Mrs. Carter, you've always stood firm behind the fundamental idea that whenever possible, Americans deserve to grow old in their own homes and their own communities, surrounded by the people they love. And you've helped to show just how important America's caregivers are to fulfilling that promise. Now, there was a time when caregivers were too often overlooked in the national debate. Today, thanks in part to your leadership, there's a greater understanding of the vital role caregivers play. And there are more resources available to help caregivers stay healthy and strong for their loved ones and for themselves. Along with President Obama and my colleagues across this administration, I look forward to continuing this work together with you and your institute. Congratulations again, and thank you for 25 great years.
Hi, Rosalynn. Jenny Stepanek here, Maddie Stepanek's mom. And on behalf of the Maddie J.T. Stepanek Foundation, I want to congratulate you on your 25th anniversary of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving. 25 years. That's amazing. And across all of those years, you and your organization have raised awareness and positively impacted the needs of people around the world, people of all ages and people in all spaces. Like my son Maddie, I believe that peace is possible. And I believe that peace is rooted in being okay with who we are as a person, which comes from having our basic needs met, from having access to food and water and air, access to health and education and safety, but also access to the important truth of trust. Trusting that someone will be there to care for and tend to our needs today and tomorrow. Trusting that our needs matter regardless of our age, regardless of our ability, regardless of our culture, or so many other factors that too often affect whether our caregiving needs are met or not. No one person can end war. No one person can tend to every need of every person around the world. But every single person can begin peace. Every single one of us can choose to care about our neighbors around the block and our neighbors around the world. Thank you, Rosalynn, for sharing this belief, for spreading a message of hope and peace for people around the world. Hope is real. Peace is possible. And life is worthy. Thank you for celebrating these truths. Congratulations. I love you.
Good evening. I want to send my warmest congratulations to the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving on its 25th anniversary. The Rosalynn Carter Institute is a unique resource whose influence has grown far beyond the campus of Georgia Southwestern State University in Americus. Under the leadership of former First Lady Rosalynn Carter and its executive director, Lisa Esom, the Institute has fostered vital partnerships at the local, state, national, and international levels in order to build quality and effective caregiving programs. The need for these services is now greater than ever. I know many members of my generation, the baby boom generation, are now reaching retirement age and are increasingly in need of caregivers, as we ourselves are caregivers for our parents. Additionally, many of our soldiers returning from Afghanistan and Iraq with grievous injuries will require caregiving assistance from family members and other caregivers. I visited with these soldiers and their families at Fort Benning and Walter Reed Hospital. The sacrifices our wounded warriors make don't end on the battlefield. The pains of recovery are shared with caregivers as they struggle in private to help their loved ones cope with combat-related physical disabilities, traumatic brain injury, and post-traumatic stress on a day-to-day basis. All of the caregivers here this evening are soldiers in this silent battle. The care of a loved one, whether they are a veteran or an aging parent or a terminally ill child or spouse, often comes with great personal sacrifice. Rosalynn Carter's own experience, taking care of her family and her husband's family when they became ill, motivated her to help others in need and to improve the quality of caregiving. I regret that my wife Vivian and I are unable to be with you in person this evening to celebrate this auspicious occasion. But again, I want to wish all of you the best as you celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving.
I'm Barry Peterson from CBS News and the author of the book Jan's Story that detailed my caregiving for my wife Jan, who has early onset Alzheimer's disease. I think Mrs. Carter and the Institute have touched on something critical for family caregivers, their sense of loneliness. As Mrs. Carter wrote in her book, Helping Yourself, Help Others, it is possible that nobody knows about their situation, that no one cares, or that friends and family simply stay away because they don't know what to say or how to help. Like most other family caregivers, I came to this job by geography. I was the person closest to the person who was ill. And like other family caregivers, I had no special training for this. The days are full of challenges, the nights for wondering how well you're doing, and the worst part is the sense that no one gets what you're going through. Mrs. Carter and the Institute have done something simply amazing. They have let family caregivers know that someone understands. For those of us on the worst journey of our lives, it helps to know that we are not alone. And so, Mrs. Carter, from every family caregiver whose tomorrow will be a little bit better because we know somebody understands, I honor you and I thank you.
I am delighted and honored to have this chance to congratulate my friend Rosalynn Carter as you come together to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving. I'm so impressed by what Rosalynn has achieved over the past 25 years. Caregiving is an issue that touches everyone. We all care for our loved ones at some point in our lives, and many of us will need caregivers too one day. You and your team have recognized this and have built RCI into an organization like no other, one that takes a truly holistic approach to caregiving. Over the past 25 years, you've provided thousands of caregivers, both families and professionals, with the skills and support they need to do their caregiving better. And countless individuals across our country, from the chronically ill to the disabled to our wounded warriors, are benefiting as well. So Rosalynn, thank you. Thank you for all you've done in so many ways. And particularly, here's to the next 25 years of success at the Rosalynn Carter Institute for Caregiving.
And as we leave this evening, would we all please stand to give Mrs. Carter the well-deserved round of applause. Mrs. Carter, thank you so much for lending your name, your support, your heart, and your soul to make not just this community better, but the world a better place. We are forever grateful to you. And all I can say is for those people who call you Rosalynn, they don't know you. We all know you as the beautiful Rosalynn, and thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for coming tonight and another wonderful 25 years.